Okay, so Fate Calibration is kind of the big mechanic that happens in the last phase of Perfect Alexander, the last phase of the Epic of Alexander Ultimate. The way that most people will experience it now is very different to how it happened in person, or the first time going through in blind progression. I'll explain why that is, but I kind of want to have other people experience the journey that we went through in getting there. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but more or less an understanding into why this mechanic was so cool and so important begins back the first time you see it. And I've got a few clips just like this. I think this one here will show, yes. Okay, so here we are. This is our first time seeing it. You just jump to the middle. Yes. So this is early days.
There's that animation here. He's casting a long. What the fuck? Calibration Alpha.
So this is what happens. He casts Fate Projection Alpha, a short cast, then he casts Fate Calibration Alpha, a very long cast, while seemingly nothing happens. I'm going to take this raise as soon as the cast by finishes. Fate Calibration Alpha resolves. 4 clones spawn at the north of the room. And then you die. What? What? So people didn't really know, like, what is going on here, right? We saw a long cast which told us nothing, a short cast which told us nothing, 4 robots, and then we got stillness instantly. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Cleese. Here's another good example of the first time seeing this mechanic. Right, this is from One Ace. As you can see, no codex. This is the first time you get there, a very perplexing mechanic. Nothing makes sense. It doesn't matter how you see that mechanic, it doesn't matter where you see it, but if you see it for the first time and you don't have the codex, there is no explaining what just happened to you. We pulled this boss in this way with no codex multiple times, and every single time you do, you're left a little more confused than the last time you did. Right, here's another clip for you, just to show you the kind of bullshit we were doing.
Stop.
Right? I'll go back a little bit, right? We're in a dinky little line here, right? I don't know why, but it's having issues staying stable, this video. But we're baiting mechanics, or we're trying to.
Stop.
It's motion.
Stop. Last most one moved.
What we predicted didn't work.
Oh my god,
We got sacramented. And nothing makes sense. Right? We thought we had rules put in place for how these mechanics were going to happen, but it just didn't work. Oh, I'm dropping frames again. Hopefully you can all make sense of this. And once again,
When you're in the safe spot, you need to continue moving because it happens.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How does this mechanic work? Right here.
Right on center.
Fuck.
What just happened?
There's also another stop.
So essentially, what we could gather from all of those pulls, however, is that we know what mechanics are going out, we just don't know how they're going out. In every single one of those pulls that made it past the initial stillness or motion, you could see a deformation put on one player, you could see a, what do you call it, a shared sentence put on one player, and you can see 3 aggravated assaults put on 3 different players. And aggravated assaults are the little lightning bolt debuff. And that kind of tells you how to resolve the mechanic, right? It tells you that defamation needs to be far from everyone. The shared sentence and the 3 people without any mechanic need to be stacked together, and the 3 people with the aggravated assault need to be separate but away from the defamation. So we knew how to resolve the mechanic, we just didn't know how to get the information we needed to resolve the mechanic. And that was the journey, really. By now everyone knows how the heart came out, which was a long, long time ago. You get the codex, all of a sudden everything's different. And so with all this information, we didn't know what was going to happen when we finally got there. Right, we have the codex, this is the first time with the codex we see it. Projection A. Make sure you get footage of around the room as well. So we're prepared for anything at this point. We know what to do if we can tell the mechanics. So no, watch their animations. There we go. Wait, what the fuck is this? And so now it's telling you piece by piece how the mechanic works. You can see all the debuffs going out there. So we'll break down that clip as soon as this resolves. Sacraments. 1, 2, 3. So let's go back and see what actually happened during the Fate Calibration Alpha cast bar, because that's what tells you everything that's about to happen. Okay, you remember when we didn't have the codex, none of these clones were visible around the outside during this time. So by sheer luck and good testing methodology, we'd established that we knew that there was a stillness or motion. We'd established that there was the debuffs that I talked about before, 3 sacraments, which would create a safe spot, and then another stillness or motion at the end. So we knew what to do, we just needed to know how to identify it, and now we learn how to identify it in the Fate Calibration Alpha cast bar. I need to go back further. So no, watch their animations. That there, that sword falling down, that is a sign for ordained motion. So that tells us the first thing that's going to happen is going to be an ordained motion. But what no one actually realized the first time we saw this outside of a couple of people was that these little tethers we have are going to a small clone of ourselves. You can see it's left behind there. That's me, right there. And what this clone is doing is, this clone is what Perfect Alexander is predicting we do in the future. He's reading what we're going to do, and he's going to use his mechanics in a way that's going to kill us. So if we do what we were usually going to do in the future, which is what the clone will do, we will die, and we see our clones die to the various mechanics we're given. Wait, what the fuck is this? There we can see the start of the debuffs going out. A defamation on someone's clone over here. The shared sentence, someone's clone over here. Lightning bolt mechanic, aggravated assault on myself, one other, and then someone else around here. One more motion mechanic. Now we can identify the safe spot from the sacraments going through the room. You see this area down here was safe from the sacraments. You can tell because it's opposite the one robot around the outside, which doesn't cast it. And the other safe spot is right in front of it.
You see the safe spot. It's between A and B. The robot that the safe spot is between.
Right, he said between A and B, but he just got confused because 2 has the same color as B. Between A and 2 is the safe spot, therefore opposite A and 2 is the safe spot. I have aggravated assault, so I want to be out of the stack, and we designated the right-hand side of the safe spot to be the aggravated assault area, and the left-hand side to be the shared sentence. We have to do 2 motions. Debuffs resolve. You can see all of them there. The sacraments resolve. That's it. That's the entirety of the mechanic. So what I do have is a very quickly drawn diagram of exactly how we resolved it. This was done within seconds of seeing this for the first time. Right, as soon as we knew all the debuffs, we knew this is how it has to happen. You can rotate this around a little bit to make it, relative to north. But essentially it's find the non-sacramenting Alexander and identify the safe spot in front of and opposite him. Stack marker, and people who don't have any debuff go on the stack marker. And then the aggravated assaults, the little thunder debuff, stand on the right of the safe spot. And that's all there is to solve this mechanic. It's very, very visually overwhelming, the same as a lot of mechanics in Final Fantasy XIV now, but ultimately it's very easily solved. It's just identifying what your clone is doing. You need to look at the stillness in motion, you need to look if you get the deformation stack or the aggravated assault, and then you need to see the last stillness or motion. Only one person can call out the safe spot where it is, but it's easy enough to notice once you're comfortable with it.
This race is out.
Right. Ultimately. Very funny. Okay. So that is the entirety of Fate Calibration Alpha. Now, Fate Calibration Beta, we didn't actually get any footage of before we got the codex, because some people did. And when they got there, they would have been very surprised, because things make even less sense there. And I'm going to go to our kill video. Actually, I think we have the God pull somewhere around here that will tell us, that shows everything. I had the deformation. Nope, that's still in Fate Calibration Alpha Hell. Sorry, I'll just be 1 second trying to find the right footage here. This is not going to be it. No, we're looking for the answer there. Sorry, I should have prepared this in advance. I thought I had. I guess I can just use the kill footage, which is the actual...
Ready to vote, Sindal.
You can't sack.
Can't sack it.
Not sack.
Can't sack it.
Stacks.
It was on me and Keith.
Okay, this does well enough. Right. Fate Calibration Beta. Much the same as Fate Calibration Alpha. He will jump to the center, cast Fate Projection Beta, short cast, then a long cast of Fate Projection Beta. The difference being that all the debuffs are different now. The way that the mechanic actually resolves is a whole bunch of different things, but it's all presented in the exact same way, right? You have your clone, which is your future self doing things wrong, but you have the Enigma Codex, so you can see that now. You can change the future. That's what this whole buff and this entire phase is about. Changing your destiny or something like that. Right, Fate Calibration Beta is happening here. And you can see my little clone here. I zoom right in on it. He's running over this way. Sorry, the replay is going very strange. And now you can see light and dark debuffs going out. It's possible to listen to the stream and learn, because you know what? I mean, you can try, Lemon. You can try. But yes, you can see the light and dark debuffs going out from the start of the phase. Right? So we learned how those function right at the beginning. We know that there is, as we call them, light beacon, dark beacon, which regulate the movement of the light and darks respectively. The lights will run towards the light beacon, the darks run away from the dark beacon. But we also now need to resolve these in a way that, as you can see on screen, deals with the tethers. Right, so there's a short tether here between a light player and a dark player, not the beacons. And there's a long tether between a light player and a dark player.
Here's the beacon.
Right? We've seen that one just before as well. There is a shared sentence that resolves after the tethers, after the forced march. And then we have J-Jump. The new Brute Justice is in here doing stuff, and it's annoying. So J-Jump functions the same as Super Jump, and it targets the furthest person away from the 3 jumping Alexander Prime clones. Perfect Alexander, sorry. So let's think about what we've got to do here. we need to resolve the lights and darks because we know how they function already. The lights are going to get sucked towards the light player, but they can't touch them. If they do, they'll die. The dark's going to get pushed away from the dark beacon, but they can't get too far away. If they do, they die. So we have to do these while also resolving the long and short tether, which are happening, each of them, between a light and a dark player. Right, so we want the short tether dark player to run with the lights, and the long tether dark player to run away from the lights. And then we have another dark player who's also going across the map. We do this in a way to put people in a position to bait the J-jumps evenly. So I can show you a diagram after this, because there's a little bit more to this phase than the J-jumps. Right, and you can just see it here, under this Alexander's arms. There's another clone back there, and he's casting Optical Sight. And you need to see the animation for this, because it'll tell you whether, like the start of the phase, it's going to be a stack or a spread. Right, and the stack means that obviously you need to have 4 or 5 people in it. You can 3-stack these, it's okay. But if you have 1 person in a stack, it wipes the raid. So you need to be able to finish the mechanics. So let's go back again. You need to resolve the tethers and the light and dark in a way that resolves the tethers, resolves the shared sentence, resolves the J-jumps, and then allows you to be in a position to resolve the optical sight. You have a little bit of time in between these to put yourself into a new position. Optical sight, just as one extra important thing to notice about the optical sight, is that if it's a stack marker, it'll always be on the beacons, the light beacon and dark beacon, so that should tell you how to resolve this part of the mechanic by itself. And then last of all, boom, one big radiant sacrament you can see on the left of my screen, and that it functions exactly the same as A12S. You want to be inside this thing's hitbox when this goes off. Now let's watch this unfold in a very chaotic way, because we haven't solved it yet. We have the basis of a mechanic, of a solution, we just don't execute it here. Sorry again for the choppy footage.
Just spread out for the optical socket and then get into the...
You can't sack it.
Can't sack it.
Cannot sack it.
Can't sack it.
Stacks.
It was on me and Kyoka.
It was on me and...
Which one? This one?
Race.
Right. And that's the end of Fake Calibration Beta. It resolves with the Radiant Sacrament. So, again, we've got a lovely little diagram here. And this is our strategy. The Fake Calibration Alpha is kind of universal, right? There's only really one way to do it. I mean, you can flip everything, essentially, but it all functions the same. We do things a little bit differently here in that we always orient the way that we do this off of the non-jumping Alexander. There are ways you can do this which are always static, but this is the way that we do ours. So, let's break down what we're seeing. The box is the dark beacon, pushing the 3 dark players away. The yellow box is the light beacon, sucking the yellow players in. The light players and the close tether dark player are all stacking right here. Right, and they're all going to move together, so there'll be 4 people all moving together. Those 4 people are the 3 regular light players, one of them with a short tether, and a dark player with a short tether moving with them. They'll move together towards the light beacon, but not quite reach them, or else that would kill people, while the far people, the dark mark people, will be being pushed to resolve both the long tether, the blue one, and the J-jumps, which are going to happen afterwards. Right, so you can see how everything resolves here. This is a non-mechanic dark player, long tether dark player, short tether dark player, every light player stacked up, light beacon here, dark beacon here. Right, that all makes sense. As soon as you've done that, everyone moves up. The shared sentence resolves on 5 players here, because you've got, the 4 people on the stack moving together, and the the light beacon who's waiting for them at the end. Tethers resolve. Shared sentence resolves. Then the J-jumps happen. How do you know which clone will not jump? It's always the same as what happens in the first. When you see them happen, right? You'll see 3 of them jump, 1 of them will be left there, and he'll cast the optical sight. It'll be the same one again. Yeah. So if this was the leftmost center one, that's where we'd orient this from. We'd do it all over this side. So the dark beacon would be here, the lights would be running up like this on the left-hand side of the arena. Important to note is that in both Fate Calibration Alpha and Beta, only the middle 2 will be the non-mechanic robots. They will never be on the outside 2. So that you can always bait or plan your mechanics around resolving around one of these 2. So your safe spots for Alpha will be in front of one of the 2 center and opposite, and the same for this. Yes, I am telling you the one that doesn't jump is the one that doesn't jump. It's uncanny, isn't it? Okay, so we've seen how all that works. The next mechanic after the shared sentence and the tethers resolving and the J-jumps happening is the optical sight. And remember, it's a random one, right? So there'll either be a stack or a spread called. Now, what I do have is the rest of this image that I want to bring up, and that's the next step of it. Right, because all the lights were up here and most of the darks were down here, you have time after the tethers resolve and after the shared sentence resolves to move towards the center, receive a heal, because there's lots of damage going out during all of this, receive a heal, and then stack for your optical sights. If it's not optical sight stacks, then you're going to spread out loosely, and while you're doing that, people will be identifying which robot you need to go to get in for the Radiant Sacrament. So I'm going to bring up our kill POV, and I'm going to show you this mechanic done successfully. Oh, this is Alpha. So let's go through it slowly. I'm looking at my clone. Keep a track on him. He's running around right there. Now we'll start seeing mechanics. So I had a light, regular light, I'm just running towards the light beacon. I also have the long tether, so that means I don't need to do anything, but one of the dark players who's tethered to me needs to resolve it in a certain way. There's the shared sentence we saw. The J-jumps go out. You can see it up here in the top left of my screen. We have a spread mechanic for the optical sight. And then I wasn't looking, but you'll see the Radiant Sacrament way off to the left of my screen. Right, someone calls it out. We usually put a marker on which robot it is. How do you know who's which beacon? It's very simple, because obviously if you are a beacon, people are running towards you or away from you. It also means you're not moving. So what you'll have is you'll have a dark or a light mark above your head, but you won't be moving anywhere. If you are moving, you're not the beacon. It's just process of elimination. It doesn't tell you with a debuff icon. It just, you have to figure it out from your movement. Yeah. Okay, so let's watch this unfold now. So what do we know? I am a long tether, regular light player, tethered to Kyo, so he'll be running away from me. And also just take note of, see this distance here? Typically that's too far for a close tether. But after the lights and darks resolve, like your forced movement, you can adjust a little bit. It gives you a bit of time, and all of these resolve at once. So you'll see the long tether just resolved over here, the shared sentence at the same time, and the short tether all resolved. J-jumps go out. 1, 2, 3. Now, we know what's coming next is the optical sight, which is the spread. So we call spread out, and you'll see someone's marked our Radiant Sacrament spot with C. In we go. And that's the end of Fate Calibration.